Hi there, John. How you doing? You okay?
Hello, yes, very good. Very good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, John. John, just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name's John Good. I'm married. I've got two amazing kids, Dylan and Jake, and I am a surfer, and I'm also a Baptist minister.
Cool.
And I live in Poole,
Cool.
Hamworthy. There you go.
And so, what do you do? You don't actually run a church, do you? Which I guess when you say you're a minister and you don't run a church, that probably confuses people.
Yeah, well, it confuses me a little bit as well. But so I'm a reverend. I'm an ordained Baptist minister, and
What's that against you, though?
yeah, appreciate that. And I was a minister up in Luton for a few years, and that was brilliant. And I came down here because there was a new housing estate being built, and the powers that be had some money, and they said, we'd love you to just go to that community as the housing estate is being developed, to just walk around, listen to God, and see what He'd like you to do in the community. And I've got the amazing opportunity of just being flexible and being able to create something which is hopefully responsive to what people are asking for.
And that's quite exciting, actually, because you actually have a blank canvas with God and say, God, what do you want to do here? What do you want to do with me? What you're saying, what you're doing, which is a rare opportunity, actually. Too often we come to something that's already half made with a load of other people's expectations and other people's stuff. And this is genuinely exploring something.
Yeah, just completely blank. And I think that's the thing that energizes me. I think on one hand, I think it's like a real driver for me, just starting from scratch and just seeing what happens and getting creative with it. And I also think it's quite scary not having those expectations and not having those boundaries, I think, as well. And a sense of identity. I think when you're a minister of a church, I think you know who you are, and I think the people around you know who you are, and I think all that's reinforced by the church service and everything else. But when that's not there, I think it's a creative opportunity, but it's also can be quite a scary one.
So, have you found it?
I have really enjoyed it. Like I said, I found it both. There has been times where I've just felt a bit disorientated and a bit like, oh man, like what am I doing? What if no project emerges? Like, what if nothing happens? What if I'm not successful? So I've had all those kind of questions, but I've also had, I've just loved living in the area. I live in Hamworthy, and Hamworthy is just full of great people.
I used to live there.
Yeah, exactly. And I was quickly welcomed in, actually. Like the guys who live here, like the Christians who live here, really welcomed me with open arms and let me have that same flexibility that the initial church did. But then even residents, local people that I've been beginning to get to know have just been quality, just really, really good people who love the area and who love the idea of community as well.
Brilliant. So what sort of stuff have you been doing? What you've been
your
day?
Yeah. Well, I guess the main thing that I've been involved in is setting up a little project. When we came, we sort of tried to consciously listen a little bit to the local community alongside Alex Digby West and your good self.
That is, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Of Powerhouse fame, and we even sort of handed out some questionnaires and stuff. And one of the questions that was on there was like, is there anything that you'd like to do in Hamworthy, but for some reason you can't do it? And people came back and they said, oh, we'd love to get out on the water, but we just can't afford it. Now, to me, that was quite surprising because we've got tons of boat yards and there's kayaking, canoe clubs, and there's fairly inexpensive water sports gear around. But for some people here, it just wasn't, they just couldn't access what was on their backyard, which I thought was an absolute travesty. But being a surfer, I probably felt that perhaps a bit more than most. But so yeah, what we started to do about it was, for years, mate, I've been really inspired by the Edinburgh Tool Library. Have you heard of these guys?
Yeah, you've told me a bit about them, yeah, but people watching this might not know about them, yeah.
So these up in Edinburgh, they basically are saying, look, what would life be like if people would share more than they shop? And they're saying, like, why does everybody need a lawnmower? Why does everybody need like their own power tools? Why does everybody need, you know, whatever? And so now they've got this massive inventory of tools, just normal tools that you can go sign up relatively inexpensively for to their library, and you can just borrow tools. But if you don't have the money to sign up, you could donate one of your own tools instead. So you can hand in a sander or whatever and become a member of the library, which I just think is brilliant. And now they've got over like 3,000 tools that people can go and buy. But off the back of this, they've been doing, you know, they've made wheelchair ramps for handicapped people accessing the local shops. They've done woodworking for different types of people. They've just done loads and loads of cool community stuff. Mm. So, and at the heart of it, the real engine room is sharing. And down here with water sports gear, there's so many people who've got paddle boards and kayaks and canoes and boats and wetsuits and all the rest of it. That I was like, what would it be like to just set up a library and just like help people to share that stuff? So that's what we did.
It's going well, yeah.
It's going well. To be honest, it's going much better than I thought it would do. We opened the doors in the middle of COVID last year, and in May, and at that time, we told one or two people about it. So a church gave us £1,000 to start up, and a local couple gave us £2,000 to start up. So we started off with £3,000. So we bought some basic gear with that just to get us going. And then off the back of that, like a church gave us a few kayaks, and then people donated wetsuits. And actually quite soon we grew an inventory of gear. And we opened the doors in May, and by October last year, I think we had 170 people sign up as members. Wow. So Mim and I just couldn't be happy with the result. Really, it was just incredible.
So, from the Water Sports Library and listening and developing something, what's the spiritual idea about a sort of how does that work from a business and also a place of being a minister and wanting to engage in people's spirituality and spiritual walks?
That's a question that's really like close to my heart, all that kind of stuff. I wanted to build a foundation which was sustainable. You know, like I think I came from a church background. Churches rely on giving. I don't have a problem with giving, but I'm not quite sure about the sustainability of it. And so I wanted to create something where people did have to pay and contribute to be a part of something that was relatively inexpensive, but that potentially could sustain itself down the line. That was really important. And then on top of that, I have always felt, since I started surfing when I was about 18, and I have always felt that the water is inherently spiritual. Like, you know, I grew up having to sing songs in church, and I recognise the value of worship music and all that kind of stuff. But for me, the majesty and the mystery and the depths of God, like, are all just out there when I'm surfing or when I'm out having a swim on the water or out in a boat or whatever. It's the place where I truly feel like I'm it sounds cheesy, like, but at one or whatever with
place of encounter. The Celts felt in places, didn't they? Those places where you can meet with God. And exactly. Again, water is that.
Water has always been that for me, and and I think like I wonder about just the potential of it for reaching other people. Like, why do people here spend so many millions of pounds buying houses that are right close to the sea? Why do people go for a swim and they come back saying, well, that was good for my soul? Why do they say, do you know what I mean? Like, and I just think that in all of us, in all the people who are adventurers or whatever, I think there is this inbuilt kind of desire to just want to get out there. Like even GPs, why are GPs prescribing time outside and even in the water, you know, nowadays? It's because it's good for us. And I believe it's beyond good for us. It's inherently spiritual. Mm. So I guess now I'm working a bit harder than I ever have been before, trying to work out a bit of a theology of the water. Mm. And I've just been reading heaps about, about God on the water and how the water is just as much his dwelling place as anywhere else. And I get really excited by the thought of, like, you know, we go to church, say, like once or twice during the week, but what happens is, I think we learn to associate the stuff inside of churches with God. And so for my own children, you know, bringing them up, what would it be like if they could walk outside and see the presence of God, like wherever they were, like, you know, in the air, in the clouds, in the trees, in the grass, and, you know, that they're very, literally as soon as they walk outside, they're encountering the presence and the power of God. I love that idea.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I think there's all kinds of connections that I'd love to demonstrate to people between mental health and the water, and physical health, the water, the temple in the Old Testament and water.
Yeah, and there's lots of images of water in a very positive way, isn't there, in the Bible as well? You know, streams of living water gushing out to people, the Ezekiel and the temple imagery, you know, that again, you know, this idea about
that water that starts as a trickle and that ends up as this massive kind of flowing river. Yeah. And but also it's in the Bible, it's interesting because it's also a picture of death.
Yeah.
And so there's heaps of, like, I think it even says in Revelation that part of what God does at the end of time is to eradicate the water, is to eradicate the sea.
Yeah.
There'll be no more seas. And so there's this really, like, this juxtaposition between, like, it's the place of birth and the cradle of life, but it's also this place of death. And, you know, 5 minutes underwater and you're in serious trouble, you know.
Yeah, and I guess that's about the baptism imagery, isn't it? That idea of dying to self and rising again. The Holy Spirit hovered over the water, but also there's no more sea in Revelation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quite exciting theology there, and actually it's kind of and it's stuff people aren't talking about. Actually, again, you know, sort of, I think so often a lot of Christian stuff feels a bit like, oh, this is a bit tired, this is a bit, you know, but actually this is engaging in the stuff that's around people, and that connects in people in a different and deeper way, which I think is really, really exciting.
Well, that's it. Well, I think that's what missional theology is all about. Like, it's never been, I don't think it's ever been, like, hard. Like, it's wherever you enjoy going, wherever you spend lots of time, that's the place where God is already enjoying spending lots of time with you.
Yeah.
But I think that we have all these inbuilt assumptions about where he is, and it's not there. It's not like, you know, in computer games, it's not out on the ocean, it's not in the office, it's somewhere else. And I think it's just quite difficult to uproot some of those things.
And actually talking to people about faith, using our everyday imagery and the stuff where we're sharing, actually almost gives you a common language, a common thing that you can, you know, you can get.
Yeah, it's not hard, I think, and picking up on some of the everyday language that people use about things. You know, when they call something awesome, or they say they're in love with something, or what does that mean? Why? And for me, that just starts a bunch of questions, and, you know, and you start from there.
No, brilliant. And yeah, sort of almost one of the last couple of questions. If you were starting off a project like you're doing now, if you were moving afresh to Hamworthy again, or maybe another Hamworthy, and you had to have a conversation with your younger self, what would be the couple of key pieces of advice you'd give yourself? Apart from not paying for the beer with the bloke around the corner with a dodgy beard.
Oh, mate, you were one of the biggest blessings about Hamworthy. Yeah.
That's just because I bought him a beer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I just think listen relentlessly. I think, and I think even once you've started doing, just keep listening.
Yeah.
I think that's crucial, because I think God just speaks all the time. I'm trying to teach my kids how to listen, and actually it's not very easy. And it's not very easy for me to do. And the temptation is just to want to go for it all the time. But I think God lets you listen. Even once you've chosen a sense of direction, you can still listen. So just listen would be one of them. And then I think another one would be definitely to face your fears. There's just a ton of stuff that in all of us, we're scared of things that lurk inside ourselves. And our identity and who we are, and I'm not good enough, and I can't do it, and I'm not rich enough, strong enough, clever enough, whatever it is. And then I think there's also a sense of I can't do that, I've never done that before, like that thing's too hard, it's too big, it's too challenging, or whatever. And I think that Bible verse about perfect love driving out fear is true.
Yeah.
So I think I just encourage myself over and over again, and I do at the moment, to just try and face my fears, just face up to the stuff both internally and externally that I'm scared of.
Yeah. When I was in Kingswood, we had this amazing pastor, evening pastor, Jackie. She's briefly done one of these videos. I'm hoping to catch her. And she was talking about, and she used to have this phrase of, she said, "Yeah, do it scared. Do it with God, but do it scared." So that idea, we often say, "Oh, I'm scared." So, well, still do it. Just do it. Yeah, just do it when you're scared, but know God's with you. And I used to think that was quite a good piece of advice. Do it scared, but know God's with you.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Will Smith would agree with that. I think I had a little pep talk from Will Smith.
It's always good to have a pep talk from Will Smith.
You can't argue with him.
No, exactly. And last question. Any sort of particular Bible verses, or maybe even quotes from Will Smith that really that really sort of helped shape you on your journey here, or that you really want to just share as a
for ages, the one verse that has really inspired me is that verse from Thessalonians, and where Paul has just finished talking about how he's like a mum and a dad to this young community there. And he says, we loved you so much that we not only shared the gospel of God with you, but our whole lives as well. And I think that's something that I hold really dear to myself. That's what I try and do. I think that the danger of Christian evangelism is that you feel like you've got this suitcase, which is the gospel, like to give to people. And then once you've done that, you've done your job kind of thing. And I think actually the job is to share yourself, and Christ indwells you as you indwell the neighbourhood. Yeah. And I think, I think that's what I aspire to.
Brilliant. It's a great verse, and it's a great challenge as well. It's not just throwing a Bible bomb at somebody with a John 3:16. It's actually about living out the kingdom of God and embodying it, and pointing people towards Jesus. No, that's brilliant. Fantastic, John. Thank you so much. That's been brilliant.
Mate, well, it's been a delight talking to you. I really appreciate it. Always good to talk to you, Andy.
Brilliant. Fantastic.